quite aware that lunch is coming up, so hopefully you don't think I have too many slides. For those of you who don't know Danske, we are the largest bank in Denmark. We own banks in Sweden and Norway and in Ireland and in Finland as well. And we're also a very old bank and very traditional and conservative, I think a lot of people would say. So social media is not perhaps the most obvious thing to integrate in our social media mix. But I think we've come a long way, and my presentation here today will sort of illustrate the social media journey that we've been on and try to touch upon how it has helped improve our products and services and basically just move closer to customers. And I'm going to try to show a lot of examples here today, because I think sometimes social media talks can tend to be a little bit high level and fluffy, and sometimes it's just good to see some concrete things. But before I move into that, just a bit about why we take social media so seriously at Danske. And I think this slide illustrates the challenge quite well. This is Edelman's overview of the most trusted industries today. And as you can see, banks and financial services are at the very bottom. And I don't think it's a big surprise for anyone in this room. But I think it really shows, if you think about how we now live in a connected world where everyone can talk to everyone, having this kind of reputation is a real challenge. So basically for us, in Danske, the way we use social is basically as a tool to close that gap that now exists between the bank and its customers. And I'm not saying that social is kind of a silver bullet that can fix this, but I do believe it really holds a fantastic potential to deal with some of the reputational challenges that the whole financial service industry is now facing. And, oh, I touched the black button. I'm still here. All right. Going back to 2009, because that was kind of the starting point for our journey into social media. In Denmark, Danske Bank was one of the most respected brands in Denmark. And then the financial crisis hit us due to some quite controversial investments and high losses. We went from being the most respected brand to one of the least respected in 1 year. Completely changed the public view on us overnight. And at that point, we had to really look into the way we communicate with our stakeholders, because we couldn't do that through the press. The media was bashing us all the time. So we had to do something different and something drastic. And even something as drastic as using social media in a kind of conservative organization as Danske is. And what we did basically was that we made a big campaign where we went out on outdoors and TV commercial and asked customers and non-customers back in 2009 to go into our homepage, where we made a blog, and then people could give their opinion about Danske Bank. We said, tell us how we can improve as a bank. We really want to listen and learn how we can improve as a bank after this. And the reason we did this was because we knew that the only way we could regain trust was through dialogue and really showing that we really wanted to listen and we wanted to learn and we wanted to improve. And the campaign we did was kind of based into 3 different phases. First, a listening phase, where we just said, go into our website. We had a blog open in 2 months, and we had more than 3,000 posts in a blog in these 2 months. Then a reflection phase, where we kind of looked into all the customer input that we received. And then an action phase, where we kind of came back based on the input that we received from our customers, and based on that articulated 24 actions to become a better bank. So back in 2009, we really used social media as a kind of an active tool to kind of articulate our strategy and our answers to the customers based on all of the criticism we were faced with. And I think this campaign was, a fantastic, it was in many ways a fantastic campaign, but it was also a huge challenge, because being in one communication mode, kind of a one-way communication model, and then moving into something as this was a huge challenge. We had, people posting comments 24/7, and it was comments like personal complaints from the branches to why are your SRI policy in the way it is. And being agile enough as an organization to respond to that was a huge test. So after that, kind of I think the feeling in the organization was that, okay, social media is nice, it was a great tool that helped us, but we're never going to do that ever again, because it was definitely just too time-consuming. But you cannot open up and say, we want to listen to you guys, and then say, okay, now we don't want to listen to you anymore. So we had to kind of articulate a new strategy going forward and see how could we improve, how could we get the proper organization in place to kind of having an active presence in this new media space. And I think the way we operate is, I'm just going to have some water here. I think it will too much, I can't go into our whole social media strategy, but if I had to boil it down, I would say it consists of 2 activities and kind of illustrate it as conversation management. And basically it's just consists of some proactive activities, which is activating conversation. How can you make sure that people talk about what you want them to talk about? How can you stimulate the right kind of conversations? And then the reactive part, and this is stuff we have talked about all day today. How can we observe the conversations that are out there, and how can we join them when it's relevant? And how should we be organized to having this kind of presence? I'm just going to give some examples on that. If we start with the reactive part, it's about monitoring. It's basically about listening and what Sally touched upon earlier. How can we have the proper listening tools? How can we also use that for damage control? But more importantly as well, how can we use that knowledge to support internal innovation? I'm just going to give some examples of this. The joining of conversation, this is on Twitter, and we do customer service on Twitter. I'm just going to translate these tweets. This is a guy saying, I wonder what I'm doing in Danske Bank, because he's complaining of the e-banking system. In this case, we just go out and answer and says, hello, I'm from Danske, still have problems with the e-banking. Our supporters are here to help you. The funny thing is, and I could tell you anything because this is in Danish, but this is actually people. But this is actually people saying that it's great to see Danske Bank listening to questions on Twitter. It's getting retweeted. There's a guy saying, cool to see Danske Bank's listening on Twitter. Nordea, your move. It's a competitor and stuff like that. And I think it shows how you help one customer, but it's visible to everyone else. So people are really surprised that an organization like Danske is on Twitter and having an active presence. So there's a lot of, I don't know, kind of meta communication about, and also some symbolic value of just having a presence like that. We do customer service on Facebook as well. We trained our contact center to respond to inquiries on our Facebook page, having put a lot of effort in, like Barclays, in terms of what should our tone of voice be, how should we respond on Facebook. And then I think an important thing is also how we can have a more distributed presence. How can we meet customers where they are? So we also monitor blogs and reach out to them there. For example, this one is a girl who wrote a post, Danske Bank, wake up and smell the internet, where she complained of why should it be so difficult to log into our e-banking system if you are a Mac user in Danske Bank. And it was much easier when she lived in the UK, and now she moved to Denmark, and it's so much trouble. In this case, we just find someone in the organization who are capable of answering. In this case, it's often our guys from our security department. And I've been very surprised of how they have seen this task when I contact them and say, there's this blog, do you want to respond to that? Because I think it's different from the day-to-day job. So he just, in this case, write a long comment and explain to her how you want to be safe. Well, you want it to be convenient, but you also want to be safe. And in this case, I think the funny thing is how people respond to that. I think there was a question earlier on terms of, isn't this too much, or are you allowed to join that conversation? Isn't it Big Brother's watching you? I've never experienced a customer who has complained about that. On the contrary, like this one where she says, thanks very much for your comment. I must say, I'm so pleased to see that someone from Danske Bank found this and got back to me. Courtesy on that. And she actually goes on and tweeted about it, saying, whoa, nice comment on my blog from the chief security architect at Danske Bank. So I think Twitter is a fantastic tool, or meeting people at their own space is a fantastic way to kind of go beyond people's expectations. Another case on damage control, this is from our bank in Norway, where a guy wrote, look what the postman came with today. Focus Bank have sent me PIN codes to 4 random people's credit cards. And then taking a picture of it and put it out on Twitter. So it's, I mean, in this way, luckily because we monitor. And in Denmark, I mean, I think there's 50,000 Danes on Twitter, so it's really a small challenge, a small channel. But I think you can learn a lot of by just being there, and you learn a lot about the mistakes you obviously will make as a big organization. In this case, we called the guy up, and he wrote another tweet saying, Focus Bank had called and asked how I got these wrong PIN codes, impressive social media surveillance. And then we have kind of closed it down. So we really have put a lot of effort in terms of having this kind of presence. That was a bit about the reactive part, and if I should move on to how we can kind of activate conversations. A lot of the work we do there is on Facebook. And I still meet a lot of people who think that if you go on Facebook, then something magic will happen, and suddenly you'll have a lot of fans who will talk to you. It might be for some companies, but definitely not if you're a bank, and definitely not if you're Danske Bank, at least. But I really do believe that you as banks has a potential to become relevant, as we also talked about earlier. How can you become relevant? And I think it's a question of how can you find touch points where people really care about your products. And one way we've done that is around our mobile banking apps. We have had a huge success with our mobile banking app in Denmark. It's the most downloaded app in Denmark. And it's something that our customers are really passionate about. And we wanted to kind of build a community around that. So what we did was we made a campaign where we said, okay, you liked our mobile banking app, but how can we make it even better? And then we made a lot of outdoors on that and asked customers to come into our Facebook page. And then on our Facebook, we built a special app where we said, submit your ideas in terms of how can we improve our mobile banking app. And then people could post their idea, and then other customers could vote on their idea. And when we did this, I mean, our media agency was honestly quite skeptical about this, saying that we could get 50 ideas, then that would be fine. But we got 263 ideas in 5 weeks, and Denmark is a small country, so that's quite okay. And we had more than 70,000 visitors. And I was really surprised to see how much people wanted to engage in that and how much they cared about our products. So people were really discussing the design of the app, the security issues. We had people, really savvy users, coming up with good stuff that we actually haven't thought about ourselves. And some, of course, we had thought about, but it was really a great thing for our mobile bank developers to now see how customers responded to the things they are working on, and kind of also validated some of the stuff that we have been looking into. We also made a blog on on Facebook, what we call an idea blog, where we said, meet the guys who will work with your idea. And I think it's a great way to kind of put a human face on the bank and really showcase some of the capabilities in the organizations. And it was a great way for our mobile bank developers as well, who normally don't have kind of a direct contact with the end user. Suddenly now they could see that they were displayed publicly, and they could see that interaction with the users. So that was kind of something that was really well received internally as well. Recently, we have used, the idea with the Idea Bank is we're going to mobilize and use it on different areas. And recently, we just done it on our iPad app. But this time, it was back in August. That time, we wanted to do it a bit differently. And what we did was we knew that we would be launching an iPad app sometimes in the fall. And we've been working it for some time. But this time, we went out publicly and said, we're working on this iPad app. We really want to show you what we're working on. Go into our Facebook page and help us finishing it. And I think this is a completely different approach, because normally you sit really secrecy, and it's a big secret that you're working on this, and then suddenly go out with a big bang. But this time, we really went out publicly and said, this will come sometime in the fall, help us finishing it. And then people could go into our Facebook page in this app and see examples of the stuff that we've been working on. So you see over here an examples of various ways you can see your transactions, and we ask customers, do you prefer to see it as a calendar, or would you want to have it as a traditional list? We made videos of different ways. We wanted to illustrate the transfer process, really illustrating some of the various things we've been working on. So I have to summarize this way of using co-creation to use customer input in terms to improve your products. you get some direct results out of it. You get some concrete ideas and inspiration, and you will be surprised to see how creative some of your customers are and what's important for them. Then you'll get just a better feeling in your stomachs in terms of the validation of your development plan. Because, of course, there will be a lot of stuff that comes from users, something you have thought of yourself, but getting a gut feeling and see that this is the same thing that the customer cares about is an important thing. And then there are also the spin-offs in terms of having a more customer-centric organization, having people working deep down in the organization with IT development, suddenly interacting directly with customers is a big change management tool and really helps to put a customer focus inside the organization. It helps build pride and reputation as well, because suddenly you can show to the public that, yes, you want to learn and listen from your customers. And I think that's just a way you as a bank after the crisis has, at least we have, to go in terms of rebuilding our reputation. And this is my last slide. And if I should kind of summarize in terms of the value of social media, now traditionally you have your traditional campaigns is you make an initiative and then you kind of have to start all over again. With social media is different. It's you kind of earning an audience over time. So when we made the first Idea Bank session, we got 10,000 fans on Facebook. We made another session, then we got 15,000, and so forth. So slowly you're building an audience. And I think that's really where the true value of social media is you're building an audience over time. And that's what you have to capitalize on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Thomas. And we've got time to take a couple of questions before lunch. So again, I'll throw it open. Any takers? One right at the back, please.
Richard Holm from Lansons Communications. Just focusing on making the Danske Bank more customer-centric. How difficult was it to get buy-in from people like the chief security architect to become a customer-facing role where traditionally they wouldn't have been?
I think the most challenging thing to get buy-in was from the very top at the beginning. But I think the financial crisis really helped a lot there to create the right mindset in the organization. Getting other people on board hasn't been that challenging, actually. I think people just think this is fun. I think this is real people, it's real comments. It's if you call people up and say, that's this question, this guy from the security architect, this is actually a real customer kind of complaining of his system. And he really kind of feel a little bit offended about that. And I think, therefore, it's more easy to get people on board.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, gentleman at the back on the right-hand side there.
Hi, Jeremy Trott, Allianz Insurance. Really interested in your active conversations. How do you deal with the problem whenever you ask customers to come up with ideas of not being able to implement all of those ideas and getting back to them and managing expectations?
Can you repeat that? I didn't.
How do you, within your active conversations that you start with customers, when you're asking for ideas from them, how do you deal with the fact that probably only 5% of those ideas you're going to be able to take up, the rest of them you're going to have to bin, or you know, how do you manage expectations with those customers? Yeah,
I think that's you're really touching on one of our main concerns. It's of course if people put a lot of effort and are engaged in your products, and then of course they expect that you take that seriously. When I did the first session with the mobile banking Idea Bank, we were actually capable of delivering on one of the two of the top 3 ideas that got the most votes. So that was, I mean, we had that on our, honestly, we had it on our development plan. They were quite low prioritized, and we could kind of put it up and quite quickly go out with that. So that was, in the first session, that was fantastic, and then really showed that we we took our customers seriously. So it was just really, really a good start. With the iPad app, it was a little bit more difficult. And I think what we did is, when we do these idea sessions, we always do videos where the guys responsible for the development plan comment on the 5 most popular ideas. And just going through and say, this is a great idea, but it is difficult to implement it because of those reasons. And I think, actually, first of all, I think some of the people, what motivates people is just that they want to make sure that this is heard. And then as long as you give them a proper answer, then people are completely okay that you're not going to implement all of the ideas that comes in. People don't believe that this is just, we're going to do whatever. So I think you can see it with Starbucks have done it the same thing. Dell had done it with the idea storm. And I think if you're just really, really clear on the concept and really go out and say, we're not promising you anything, but we want to hear from you guys what your ideas are, but we cannot promise you that we actually are going to do this. But then I think people are completely fine with that.